Hi everyone, it's Father Henry, your pastor. I hope that you are as excited as I am about what is coming up for you very soon. You'll be receiving your First Holy Communion, which is also called your First Eucharist. I know how hard you have been preparing for this special day. You have learned about the Mass and how Jesus gave us the Eucharist at the Last Supper. You learned how the bread and wine is changed to the body and blood of Jesus at Mass, and you learned what a sacrament is. As you know, you can only receive some of the sacraments once, such as baptism and confirmation. And for me, I received the sacrament of holy orders when I became a priest. But other sacraments, such as reconciliation Eucharist, you can receive many, many times. In fact, you can receive the Eucharist every day. I hope that you will come to Mass each week and receive communion. It is a very special gift from Jesus. It is the gift of himself and his love for you. I'd like you to take a few minutes reviewing some of these things that you see here at St. Jude Church, things that I use when I say Mass. You may recognize them, but today I'm going to explain what they are and how they are used. Let's begin with the area, the place where I stand and sit during Mass. This entire area is called the sanctuary. You can see that there are chairs there and the ambo where the readings are read. In the center of the sanctuary is the altar. The altar is a table, but it is a very special table. It is where the bread and wine is changed into Jesus. Only very special things can go on the altar. It is never used as an ordinary table for storing things, nor is it used for anything other than Mass. Covering the altar is the altar cloth. This special cloth is not used for anything else. Think of it as the tablecloth that your mom uses when she's having a special meal. On the altar, you see an altar crucifix. You know that a crucifix shows what Jesus did for us, how he sacrificed his life because he loves us. This crucifix is there for everyone to see, and I love to look at it while I'm saying Mass. On the other side of the altar, you see candles. Right now they are not lit, but we do light them when we say Mass. The candles represent the light that Jesus brings into the world. They are a sign of respect and holiness. Many of our church celebrations have lit candles. At the beginning of Mass, you will also see a book on the altar. This is the Roman Missal, or Sacramentary. This holy book contains the prayers that I say during Mass, such as the opening prayer, the prayer over the gifts, and the Eucharistic prayer. So at the beginning of Mass, the candles are lit and only the sacramentary and the crucifix are on the altar. But that changes for the second part of the Mass, called the Liturgy of the Eucharist. I am sure that you have seen the bread and wine being brought up to me at Mass. I stand in front of the altar and receive these gifts, and then I bring them to the altar. The bread that looks like communion, but it isn't Jesus yet, is brought up in a vessel called a ciborium, and the wine is in a glass cruet. The wine is then poured into a chalice for the consecration, which is the body of the Mass when the bread and wine are changed into Jesus' body and blood. The chalice is a word that means cup. Let us go over what I have on the altar for the Liturgy of the Eucharist. Since the Eucharist is so holy, we have a special cloth that the vessels are put on. It is called a corporal. There is another white cloth on the altar, and that is the purificator. The purificator is used to wipe the chalice and vessels after we receive the Eucharist. So that's a quick tour of what you see on the altar when I say Mass. I'd like you to pay close attention at your first Eucharistic Mass. See if you can identify all of the things that I've just taught you. Remember, Mass is a very holy meal, and so the vessels and cloths that we use are very special. And now to continue, we have some review questions for you to answer so that you'll be fully prepared to receive your first Eucharist. I cannot wait to celebrate that day with you and your families.